Hello everyone and welcome back to our How to Teach Go series. In this lesson we're going to introduce how to teach eyes. Now the first example you want to use is of course if they're playing a game or when you want to first teach it. I mean, if they're playing a game, they get surrounded and it's they've been playing, they gotten used to invading and they gotten used to living, they live cramped, or you're living in theirs and you're living pretty easily. You want to wait until they get used to that, and once they're used to that, they're going to probably start be wondering how do you determine if something's alive or dead? Well, if they have space, they're probably just going to assume it's alive. So maybe either you can kill one of their groups, you can show them by capturing one of their groups and show them by reducing the space on the inside, they can be captured, or you can try and make a small space and encourage them to kill you. But it'll probably be easier if you show them why a space can be reduced to one eye and how that can be captured. So what I mean by this is, for example, let's set up an example. Let's say they are living with a bulky four, and let's say you have them surrounded with something or something like this. And let's say the game's nearly finished, and you want to show them how to actually capture something. Well, first things first, you're going to want to fill up all the liberties. And then then they'll probably pass, and they're gonna assume they're alive. So now you're going to say, well, let me introduce a little bit more to you about life and death, and and how you determine if something's alive or not, and then refresh their memory by saying you're alive if you have space, but you're only alive if your space is big enough. And I'll show you why. But first, and then you proceed to play inside. First, I'm going to play inside. How do you respond? And they might respond with something simple. They play this, and if they ignore, you can capture. And you're like, oh, don't ignore, or I'll capture you. So they'll capture you, and they'll be like, why are you playing inside? And then you keep playing inside, and then they capture you again. And then you point out you only have one liberty. Once you only have one liberty, I can actually capture you. And once you point that out, they'll realize, oh, I died. And then they'll try to figure out how did I die even though I had space? You said if I had space, I was alive. And so they've been thinking this for a while now, but now you have to actually betray that little thought and say, yes, if you have space, you're alive, but it has to be big enough space or a certain shape of space. And this is where you'll start going into eyes. And you'll say that some space is alive, but not every space is. If the space is small, then it might not be alive. And to determine that, we need to determine if the space you have surrounded is actually two eyes or not. And then you'll show them what an eye is. To show them what an eye is, let's clear this up a bit. To show them what an eye is, basically you'll set up a Panuki in the center of the board. Once the Panuki's up in the center, you'll say this is an eye because it actually is a spot that white cannot play. So for example, white cannot play this spot at all. It's an illegal move. So I can't even visually put the stone on the board. But you'll say, if I place a stone inside, you might actually place a stone inside, you'll say white has 0 liberties. Therefore, this is an illegal move. However, remember that we can capture something only if it's their last liberty. We can actually play inside if it's their last liberty. So we learned this before, but you're going to re-emphasize the point. So we'll say you can create a situation like this, and then completely surround them. Try to avoid the ko shape unless they already know the ko. And if they don't know the ko, try to make it happen in your game and just make it come up and show them. But point is, go ahead and teach them this, and you say, if it's like this and it's my turn, you have 1 liberty. Therefore, I can capture. Because your liberties are counted before mine, I can actually capture this, and now I'll have 4 liberties. And so even though you had some space surrounded, I can actually still capture you because you only had 1 eye, or you only had 1 liberty that I couldn't play, and I took all the other liberties. It's your last liberty. Now I can play. So this is what an eye is, and you'll explain it that way. You'll say this is an eye. It's basically a liberty that your opponent cannot play unless it's the last liberty. Uh, once you say that, then you'll try to expand it a little bit. So you'll use this example where okay now we'll try to figure out how many liberties is this? Ask them that. Like, how many liberties is this? We're going to try to figure out how big of an eye do we need, or how much space do we need to have multiple eyes. And you'll use this to point out that eyes are not necessarily only one point, but rather they're eye shapes or positions that can be reduced down to one point. And so you show them this shape, and you'll be like, how many liberties is this? And they'll say, well, 2. It has 2 liberties. And then you'll say, how many eyes? And they might say 2, or maybe they might say 1, or they'll be confused. And so you'll say, okay, well, can I play inside? And the answer is yes, because you have 1 liberty. And if they ignore, you can actually capture. So of course black has to capture. And now the shape's one eye. So you'll say this space, this 2 in a row space, is actually only one eye because I can sacrifice stones to force you to play inside in order to reduce it down to 1 liberty, which basically is this shape. So I can actually sacrifice stones to force you to reduce your space down to 1 liberty so I can capture you, or reduce your space down to 1 eye so I can capture you. Therefore, we say that 2 in a row, even though it's 2 liberties, is only 1 eye because white can actually play inside and sacrifice stones to reduce it down to 1 eye. So 2 in a row is 1 eye. And you want to make sure they understand this point because this is going to be confusing. You want to maybe say it a couple times or maybe say it clearly and maybe set up another 2 in a row example on the side potentially. Make sure they fully understand that the 2 in a row is 1 eye and make sure they understand why it's 1 eye. It's because you can actually place stones inside and sacrifice it and reduce it down to 1 eye or 1 liberty. So once they're clear on this, once you've asked them, maybe I think it would probably be best if you set up one example and then ask them how many eyes it is. They'll probably say 1 because it's 2 in a row, and then ask them to prove it and basically make them reiterate what you said to them. Once they prove it and you understand that, then you can start moving on. And now you can actually start working on 3 in a row. And this is going to be your first actual life and death problem that you will teach them. Oops, that's 2 in a row. So this will actually be the first life and death problem that they'll probably see is 3 in a row, because this is usually the very first shape we ever learn is 3 in a row. It might not even be good to do this after showing them 2 in a row on the sides. That way it's a similar concept. You'll say this is also 2 in a row. If I play inside, if I play move inside, it's going to be reduced down to 1 eye, and do the exact same example, or maybe ask them to prove this to you. And now you'll set up the 3 in a row, and you'll say, okay, well now there's 3 in a row. So how many eyes do you think this is? And they'll say, maybe 2, maybe 1, I don't know, or something like that. And you'll try to explain it to them. And so you say, okay, so if I play right here, where can black play? And they'll say, well, black might play right here. Well, actually, if you do that, I capture you. And if they play right here, I capture you. So actually, black can't play. So they'll say, okay, then you'll conclude, okay, black actually can't play because it's self-Atari if he plays. And then you'll say, okay, now white wants to capture. So let's say black ignores. White will then proceed to do this and actually force black to capture, because if black doesn't, I capture. Therefore, black must capture. And so you can actually do this, and you'll say, okay, now I've sacrificed stones to reduce it down to 2 in a row. And how many eyes is 2 in a row? Ask this question. How many eyes is 2 in a row? And they'll say, oh, it's 1 eye. Or some of them might still be confused, or someone will be trying to process, or some might get immediately like, oh, you just made it 2 in a row. And then you can just proceed to do it again and capture, because now it's 2 in a row. And we just learned 2 in a row. So 2 in a row is 1 eye. Therefore, 3 in a row, if I play this move, is 1 eye, because I can make it the same shape. I can reduce it down to a 2 in a row, which can be reduced down to 1 eye. Therefore, 3 in a row, if I play right here, is 1 eye. And then you throw them a curveball. You say, yes, so if I play here, if I play right here, then it is going to be 1 eye. However, there is a way for black to make 2 eyes. What's the move for black to make 2 eyes? And the hint is try to place a stone that will surround 2 different spaces. Because if one space is 1 eye, then maybe making 2 spaces will make 2 eyes. And you can try and say it in your own words, however you want. And then perhaps once you do that, they'll try to find it, and some of them might play here, and you'll ask them, how many eyes is that? What shape is this? And you'll point out the 2 in a row, or they might see it, or they might guess it. And if they don't, you just point out that this is 2 in a row, and you can still actually sacrifice and capture. So that's if they do that or that, you'll point that out. Some of them might get it, some of them might not, but you want them to get this move. And then once they have this move, you'll say, okay, if you play here, can I play or right here? Basically, this move. I can't actually physically place the stone on the board, but if you're in person, you can. If you're on a computer, you can't. But I actually can't place a stone right here. And you can show them that. And you're like, how many liberties does white have if I place it right here? And they'll try to find it, and they'll be like, oh, 0. Yes, so that's 1 eye. Therefore, 1 eye. So I have to surround all the other liberties to capture the group. And where's the other liberty? You can ask them, where's the other liberty? Oh, right here. Oh, okay, well, can I place a stone right here? Can I fill this liberty? And you place a stone right there, and they'll say, oh, you have 0 liberties. No, you can't. So you'll say, okay, so I can't fill this liberty, and I can't fill this liberty. Therefore, you have 2 liberties that I can never fill. And that means you are completely alive, because no matter what move I play, I will never be able to capture this group, because I can't play here and I can't play here. Once you emphasize that, see if they get it, see if they nod, or make sure they understand. Also, show them that there is one time where I can, and that is if you actually fill your own eye, I can then capture. So make sure you never ever fill your own eye because that'll reduce your own liberties. Or don't fill your own eyes until like actually, just never fill your own eyes at the very end, because if you're down to 2 eyes and you fill it, then you die. Even in the rule set we learned in the first video, even if you teach them like the Chinese rules or some other types of rules that where the stones count as points, even then you don't want to fill in those 2 eyes due to the fact that it's self-tari. Or not self-tari, sorry, it kills yourself because it reduces you down to 1 liberty, and yeah. So therefore, you want to conclude that saying 2 eyes are alive because no matter what white plays, you will always have 2 liberties that white can never capture. And if it was 1 liberty, white can capture, but 2 liberties, white cannot. As long as they're 2 separate liberties or 2 points that white can't play simultaneously or sacrifice to reduce or force black to fill it, then it's okay. Try to word this in your own words as much as possible, and try and get them to understand it. But all right, once you've done that, you can proceed to show them if they understand. If not, then you want to try and, or actually, you probably want to give them a couple more examples regardless. The other examples I would recommend is the 3 in a row shape, or the bent 3 shape. Sorry, the bent 3 shape in the corner. 3 in a row shape in the center, and 3 in a row shape on the side, of course, to make sure they understand the 3 in a row shape. You can do this for a bent 3. You can say this is the bent 3 shape, and probably the very first time you'll stop here. You'll show the 3 in a row shape and the bent 3 in the corner, and you'll say you want to recognize these shapes as soon as possible. When you see yourself getting surrounded, you want to look for those shapes and try to make 2 eyes. So if you're getting surrounded, try and look for 2 eyes. This will have a there's a pro and a con to saying it like this. The pro is when they get surrounded, they will try to make 2 eyes, which is a good thing if they're getting surrounded and they're in a tight space and they need to live. They'll know to look for 2 eyes. The bad thing is something you'll have to fix later, is they'll have a big eye space, but they'll still be trying to make eyes. Even though they probably have like space for 5 eyes, they'll still be trying to make eyes, which you can work on later. It's more important that they learn to make 2 eyes first, then they can worry about learning to see the 2 eyes before they happen, or make the 2 eyes indirectly rather than directly, or make enough space that it will end up to be 2 eyes. And that way they learn that. Now, once they learn these 2 things, go ahead and let them practice that, maybe a couple games, or give them a few minutes to process. Make sure they understand this first and let them get used to this idea. Then you can move on to more shapes, such as 4 in a row. For example, if I have 4 in a row, that's 3 in a row, whoops. If I have 4 in a row that I'm already alive, and you can prove that to them, you want to show a bulky 5, because a bulky 5 is a very common shape. You can do this in the center of the board, the side of the board, or the corner. You can do a bulky 5, a 4 in a row, and a box 6 in the corner, but make sure when you explain the box 6 in the corner, you also do the box 6 on the side, because the corner and side are different solutions. That's important. This, you'll need the co. You'll need to know the co. And that would be it for beginners for now. You can always teach the bent 4 in the corner at a later time. For example, this shape, you can always teach in the future. I wouldn't teach this to beginners at the current time due to the fact that the bent 4 is very confusing, and the fact that it changes results depending on the rule set. Some you have to finish, some it's a co, and some it's just dead. Therefore, the bent 4, while 90% of the time it's just dead and it's gonna die, it can change slightly in result depending on the rule set. But the bent 4 is a confusing shape. I would not recommend this for a while until they understand eyes completely. Now, once they learn eyes, your job as a teacher does not finish there. Of course, their job is to pay attention to the shapes, but your job, when you play teaching games with them, is to try to actually make those shapes happen. That means when they invade you on the side, for example, if you have a position on the side where you have a 3-4 and a 4-4 and they're invading, try to actually make these shapes happen. try to surround them and then try to actually push their shapes down and try to make them make those same shapes and ask them what the shapes are. And then try to make them make two eyes or not. Oh, one shape I forgot to mention is the box 4. The last shape I forgot to mention is the box 4. This is one other shape that is very common. This is just that as it stands, and explain that. This one is just if black plays, it's 3 in a row, if black, no matter where. And if white plays, it's going to be still 3 in a row, no matter where. And you can just explain that. But basically, that's the last. Those are all the common shapes that I would recommend teaching beginners at this current time. But when you play teaching games, try to make those shapes happen so that way they can practice it. And then try to, if they mess it up, try to go ahead and sacrifice the stones to reduce it down to one eye until they understand that it's dead. Even if you lose Sente, even if you lose a lot of stones, go ahead and do it just so that way they understand which shapes is one eye and which shapes are two eyes. Sacrifice the stones and force them to make, and basically make the shape really obvious. What I mean by this is, say you have, let's say a shape like this, and there's white stones around, and it's like this, or let's say it's like this. It doesn't matter, just whatever, right? Whatever shape you can do. Let's say it's like this. Go ahead and place the white stone on the inside. What I mean by this is, go ahead and place it on the inside. Make them live. If they play it this way, or they play it this way, then you can play here and say, oh, it's 2 in a row, it's gonna die, and then you can show them the correct move was actually here. The whole point of this is an exercise for their mind or their eyes to train themselves to see where's the eye shape and what shape is it. Even if it's dead, or even if it can live, or even if it's already alive, go ahead and start placing stones on the inside and force them to find the eyes and force them to see the conclusion on their own. This will give them practice solving life and death in real games. Granted, it's a very small scale, but it's a very important step to make for the future because they need to be able to see if a shape has two eyes or not and try to figure out what's going to happen in 1 or 2 moves or 3 moves from now. What's the shape going to look like, and is this the move that I need to make eyes? And they need to consider more than just one option for those eyes as well. Basically, they need to start solving life and death problems in the game, not just in a book, but actually applying it in the game. And to do that, you just simply always throw stones on the inside until they figure it out. And once they start figuring it out, like 70 or 80% of the time, you can stop sacrificing stones and just go take Sente. But as a teacher, I would recommend going ahead and placing stones on the inside just to force them to practice the shape, and that way they fully understand the shape. All right, that is it for eyes. It's a little bit of a big lesson, and it is difficult and confusing, and probably some of the hardest things to teach is one of the hardest things to teach is eyes. But don't worry about that. The thing we didn't go over was a Seki, and I would say don't go over a Seki until it comes up or until they ask it in life and death problems. If you want to recommend them to do problems, that's probably a good thing. They can find problems online for free. Like at Tatsuki. Or sumego.tatsuki.org or tatsuki.sumego.org, one of those two websites. Or you can Google Go problems online somewhere, or you can find them on your local server, or you can find Go problem books. Those are all different solutions depending on where you are, who you are, or who you're teaching and what they like. But the point is, let them go ahead and practice it. And Seki you can teach as it comes up, or you can give them an example. But I wouldn't teach it at the same time as this. I would probably wait a bit, and then once they're used to it and they're doing more problems, then you can go ahead and show it. And that's when you want to teach Seki. But I wouldn't teach it the exact same time as eyes, due to the fact they just learned this. Let them practice this and master this before you start working on something else. That is because Sekis are very confusing if you don't even understand eyes. Because then they might find some other weird position that they think is a Seki and it's completely dead. So make sure that they get used to eyes first, and then you can teach Seki whenever you want and when you think they're ready. All right, anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this lesson on how to teach Go for eyes, or how to teach eyes. As always, thanks. Hope you guys enjoyed, and hopefully you are finding the series helpful. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, I will see you guys next time.